Hi and welcome to Magic Numbers. This is episode number 178 and this is the one we are diving into the early data for the new set, which is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And, I mean, spoiler alert, it's not Spider-Man. The people have spoken, the main content creators for Limited also have spoken, so we know now that it's a much better set. And that's my personal experience as well. I played some drafts, I did enjoy them, I played the pre-release, I did have fun, and I'm pretty sure that this format is not going to, be amazing for the whole duration of it, but I'm looking forward to playing it probably for the first 4 weeks or so, and probably I'm going to deliver the episodes on it also for the first couple of weeks. Before we go into that, thanks to all my patrons for supporting the show, because that's currently the only support I'm getting. And thanks to Snufkin and Justin for joining the Patreon. So welcome. Also, if you want to have contact with me as a content creator, definitely you can join the Discord. The link should be somewhere there on stream or on YouTube. There is a link. It should be working. And also, if you're interested in coaching, just ping me. That's the end of the announcement. Thank you very much. We can move to the preamble. And today's preamble is that win rate is not the same as pick order. There are some cards who have high win rate and are high picks, but there also is a large group of cards that have a high win rate. Doesn't mean necessarily that they should be picked high. In fact, sometimes the reason why they have a high win rate is that you can get them late. For this set, an example I found was for the first few days of the format, Mutant Town was the top win rate common in the set. Now, this is not true anymore. There are a couple of them that overtook it, but the irony, of course, one card that overtook it is TCRI Building, which is another land, and the other one is Frog Butler, which is the 1/1 frog with death touch that taps for mana. So currently the top 3 commons in the set are 3 mana related things. And there are reasons for that, but there are also reasons why you should not be picking TCRI Building and Mutant Town as a first pick. Frog Butler, different story. I could totally see packs where I would have it as my first pick. But throughout the history of the game, there are cards that have a pretty high win rate consistently and also should never be first picks, and these are combat tricks. In some sets, there will be some good combat tricks, and those good combat tricks are going to have, 58, 59, 60% win rate. Doesn't mean that these should be picked as a first pick. They're not the same as bombs. Like, part of the win rate of the card is where you can get it. And normally, combat tricks you can get quite late. For a reason, you don't need more than 2 in your deck most of the time. Because you don't need more than 2 in your deck, if you see, let's say, 7.5 good combat tricks during the draft on average, that means that even if you pass 5 of them, you still should get the 2 that you need. And other players in the pod are going to be in the same exact situation, which means that you're going to get your 2 good combat tricks in your deck without too much effort. And that lets you prioritize other cards that are maybe generically stronger, but for which you have to compete because there is maybe only 2.5 of them per pod on average. And because of that, the one that you see is probably the one of the few that you're going to be able to pick. These cards you have to prioritize. And this is the same situation with Mutant Town. Now, obviously, as we're going to discover later, this format has a 6th hidden archetype, which is a 5-color deck. And for that deck, Mutant Town is a pretty important one because it gives you green and it gives you blue, the sort of primary color in the deck, and the tertiary color in the multicolor deck most of the time. And because of that, it's quite important because that will let you cast a bulk of your spells without having to fetch for a particular land. And that's why probably Mutant Town is so important. And it's probably the same reason why the red-blue dual land is such a high win rate. It's perfectly splatting for this secondary, tertiary color and then 4th degree color, which means that if you're playing your Everything Pizza, don't worry, we'll get there, what Everything Pizza does at some stage. you are going to be... Oh, actually, do we? No, I think it is there in the top win rate card, so we might see it. But if you get it, then you have to fetch for a land that you're missing, and you don't need to fetch for a mountain, because you might already have the dual land that gives you red mana. How much do you feel Premier Draft versus Pick 2 Draft should affect your pick order? That's an interesting question. And believe it or not, it's going to be sort of answered. So I definitely thought more about Pick 2 versus Pick 1 Draft for this one. Mainly because it's a bit annoying that both of those are available. Because now I have my data that is split between two different entities. Which means, of course, the sample sizes are smaller. In fact, this set... Probably there's a bit of, negativity about it that impacted the early gameplay, and we don't have as big of a sample size as we used to have for other sets. But part of it is also because, 2/3 of people play the pick 1 draft and 1/3 of people play pick 2 draft, and that, of course, diluted the sample sizes even further. To say there is a difference between pick 2 and pick 1 drafts, different to the extent where I did not feel comfortable merging the data sets and calculating the win rate based on both. So that's partially the answer. But okay, let's start with the color popularity rankings and see what the differences are in how people perceive the format through the lens of those two. And as you can see, I have the red bars, which are for pick 1, and blue bars, which are for pick 2 draft. And here I calculated which colors are the most played for each of those types of drafting. Because I don't know if you know, but for the small sets, WotC makes the pick 2 draft available. Pick 2 draft is you pick 2 cards from every pack. And the differences here are pretty small. So first thing that we see is that we see this expected value of a perfectly balanced format. We would expect each color to be played 20% of the time, roughly. And black is the most played color, independently if it's pick 1 or pick 2. It's got 22.3, 22.5% of the games contain, well, it's drafted at 22.5% of the time, which probably converts to more like 44% of the time because, decks are two colored. But if you weigh it on what fraction of the format it takes, it's going to be around 22%, which means that it's quite far from the 20 that we think a balanced format should have. And black is eating most of the variance in the format for now. So it's overdrafted as it is right now. Second most popular color is blue at 20.7, 19.9, depending on the mode of the play that you choose. Third most popular is white, which is oscillating around 20%, but below it a bit. And then we have red at 19.3, 18.9, and last is green at 18 to 18.7%. So green is slightly underdrafted, black is quite overdrafted, and the rest of the colors are roughly where you would expect them to be. How does it convert to the win rates? And here again we have two pictures really, because first of all, we see that the average win rate of the 17Lands users in the pick 2 draft is way higher. Every color has a roughly like 0.6 to 1% difference, even in some cases over 1% difference in the win rate. Average adds up to 1 percentage point difference in win rates between pick 2 at 57 and pick 1 at 56. Worth noticing, 56, the average win rate for pick 1 draft, is already high for 17Lands users. In the recent sets, it's been more between 54.5 and 55, but this one is 56. So 17Lands users are winning more in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles than they did in the previous formats. And in pick 2, it's even a bigger difference, 57%. That's a very high win rate for 17Lands users. But what we also can see is that with this higher win rate, the variance of the pick 2 draft is smaller. And we were going to see that also when we look at the color pair win rates. There is smaller delta between the best color pair and the worst, the best color and the worst color in the set in pick 2 draft than it is in pick 1 draft. It's not a big difference, but it's a difference that is worth noting. So yeah, what is the top win rate color, you might ask, because I didn't say that. I'm talking, of course, to the podcast listeners who might not have the graphs in front of their face. It's not black. It's not the overdrafted black. It's actually white, which has 57.1% win rate in pick 1 and 57.7 in pick 2. Black is just behind it at 56.7, 57.3, so roughly 0.4 percentage points below what white is. Then we have number 3 is red at 56.7, 56 and 56.7. Then we have blue at 55.5 and 56.3. And we have green at 54.6 and 55.9. So yeah, that's what we get from this data. The order is roughly similar to the order of popularity, because in the order of popularity we have black, blue, white, red, green. Here we have white, black, red, blue, green. So at least white and black are definitely in the strong part. They're drafted quite highly and are winning quite a lot. Blue is probably overvalued by the 17Lands users because it is the second most popular color, but on the fourth popular in terms of the win rate. And red is roughly where it should be, and green is roughly where it should be. Notably, the differences are there, but they are not massive. Between 56 and 57.7, that's 1.7% difference in pick 2. And between 57.1 and 54.6, that's 2.5 percentage point difference between the worst and the best color in pick 1 draft. Yeah, and as we can see that there is this massive narrowing because green is doing much better in pick 2 than in pick 1. What type of decks do people play? Is it mainly 2 colors or something else? To give you the impression of how it looked before, this is the data for Lorwyn Eclipsed, where we had around 85% of the decks were 2 colors or 2 colors with a splash. Now that splash was not always a real thing. Sometimes the hybrid cards make a bit wonky results in 17Lands data. So we could consider like majority of the decks were 2 color. There was around 11% of the 3 color and 3 color and splash decks, and below roughly 1% of the 4 color or more. When we look at the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, we see 70, 80, 84, 83% of the decks are still 2 colors and 2 colors with a splash. So it's slightly less, but not much less. And then we see 14 to 17% of the decks being in the 3 color or 3 color in the splash. And we see much more of the 5 color decks, 5 color decks. We see that it's over 2%. So, it doesn't seem like a big difference, 1% there and here over 2%, but it's double, which means that it's twice more likely. And there is also another ramification that we're going to see later. Maybe there is not enough of them yet, and that the number is going to be increasing. Not big difference between pick 1 and pick 2. It seems that in pick 2, there is fewer pure 2 color decks. The difference being between 49 and 44%, 5 percentage points, which is not nothing at all. There is more of the 2 color and splash and 3 color decks in pick 2. In terms of win rate, and here is where it's interesting. Normally what we see is that 2 color decks are winning the most and then it starts dropping. But this is not the picture that we see in this particular format. Yeah, we see that 2 color decks are 57, 58% depending on the draft mode. Then we see it dropping as you would expect. 2 colors and splash have 54 in pick 1 and 57 in pick 2 draft. So drop of 2 or 1 percentage point. Then we see 3 color decks go to 53 and 52.8. So everything is as we expected until then. And then we see that 3 colors and Splash already get 57% win rate in pick 1, almost on par with 2-color deck. And 4 colors and a Splash decks, 59.1%. 5-color decks, 62%. So, yeah, Kiki Fipsi, we should be drafting soup, basically, is what the data is strongly suggesting. And we see the same picture in pick 2 draft, where we start at 58, drop down to 57, 53, 55, 50. So there's a bit of chaos in here. And then 4 colors and a Splash decks have 59 and 5 colors has 60%. And this is based on smallish sample size. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is small. 0.6 of the games in pick 1 draft are 5 color. But that's enough to have some credibility to that number. It means that there is a 5-color deck and it's bloody good. And it all depends on having everything pizza. And Limited Resources have been talking about it, how they like drafting everything pizza decks, which means that probably the popularity of that deck is going to increase in the coming week because they have a massive audience and viewership. But that means that if you see everything pizza, it's not a meme, it's a real deck. Data strongly suggests it. Unfortunately, because of how the 17Lands data in the early weeks is parsed, I can't really give you the recipe for that deck, apart from draft the Frog Butler and draft the Everything Pizza and put all the powerful cards. But I don't have any specifics because that's not possible to fish out the data. The only number I can give you on Everything Pizza is that in 5-color decks, if they contain Everything Pizza, those decks have average win rate of 63%, which is a lot. Which means it is a card that is a build around that is worth building around. And I've been living that dream. I had a trophy with 5-ish color everything pizza deck just recently, and I'm drafting pick 2 draft, by the way, just for FYI, but all the data from now on is going to be shown for pick 1 because that has a larger sample size. And I have a second one where I'm 2-0 up, and it also contains everything pizza, and it works quite well. And there are a couple of cards that definitely are going to show up, and we're going to talk about it. Apropos Golgari and Simic, because I guess that everything pizza decks are sort of like a mishmash of Golgari and Simic, and with addition of other things. Was this set designed with pick 2 in mind? Yes, it was designed with the pick 2 in mind. I think that every set that is going to be a small set with 5 guilds is going to be designed with pick 2 in mind. I'm playing the pick 2 draft for science because I need to understand better what are the dynamics of drafting pick 2 draft. I didn't draft mighty amounts of Spider-Man, and because of that I decided that I'm gonna play out all my TMT drafts as pick 2 drafts just to learn more, so that next time we have a pick 2 draft format I will be better informed. And I think that we're going to get one, because I think at least Star Trek is going to be again the small set, which means it will have the pick 2 draft. Okay. In terms of color popularity here, this graph is again for Lorwyn Eclipse, so don't draw too many conclusions. I just wanted to see, because Lorwyn Eclipse was a pseudo 5 guild set, which means 5 color combinations were supported, 5 were not so much supported. So I wanted to check what are the numbers in ECL versus the numbers in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And you can see in ECL, Golgari and Azorius had around 20%, and then a couple of decks that had 3 remaining supported color pairs had around 15%. And there was roughly, 21, 22, 23% of all the decks, like not quite a quarter of the decks were in those less supported color pairs. In TMT, independently of the mode of play, so red, remember, pick 1, blue, pick 2 draft, we see that Orzhov and Izzet are the most drafted. In pick 1 draft, they are drafted at around 25%. So half of all the decks that end up in 2 color pairs in TMT are either Orzhov or Izzet. Slightly less in pick 2, but not by much. This is more like 29%, 49% instead of 50, almost 51. So like 2 percentage points different. And then we have the Golgari at 18, 19%, Boros at just below 15, and Simic at around 12. Now, I assume that a lot of Simic decks evolve into multicolor soups, so there will be, like in pick 3-color, 4-color decks out of those Simic decks. And similar with Golgari, I'm pretty sure that there's plenty of the Golgari decks that also evolve into those soup decks. Important thing is that if you look at the 5 other color pairs, in total, they take up roughly 5% of the decks. So there's 4 times more of them, fewer of them than it was in Lorwyn Eclipse. This is like a true 5 color pair format without like small amount of support for those non-supported cards. While in ECL there was a bit of support for them. There were those hybrids uncommons that could be useful. There was like a theme for them. Here there is no theme, no nothing, and you can see that in the results. You opportunistically get something, and I see Mikael in the Mikael 10,000, not just any Mikael. Mikael 10,000 in the chat says that there has a surprising amount of success with Azorius Jeskai, to the point I'm forcing it now, and I feel like it's slept on. Now, you said A, Mikael. Now we need to hear B, and what is specific about your Azorius and Jeskai builds. I'm going to read it out once it appears in the chat. But generally, very low amounts of drafts that are in those colors. Selesnya has like 1.6, and that's the top drafted. And Rakdos has 0.5%. So 1 in 200 drafts that end up in 2 colors ends up in Rakdos. And these are not even like all the drafts, because only 80-something% of the drafts end up in 2 colors. What next? In terms of the win rates, and I trimmed those non-supported color combinations because sample sizes are small. They are rare decks. There will be a time in this format to look into them, but it's not now. I want to have like a proper 17Lands public data sets to be released before that. But Orzhov not only is the top played color pair, but it's also top win rate color pair. I'm going to give first numbers for pick 1 and then for pick 2. But Orzhov has 59% win rate in pick 1. Second most winning color pair. Izzet, also the second most drafted, but it's more than 2 percentage points lower than Orzhov. It's at 56.5. Third most winning is Boros at 56.4, which means that Boros and Izzet are roughly the same in terms of win rate. And then we have Golgari and Simic behind. And Golgari is at 54.6 and Simic is at 52.3. So the delta between Orzhov and Simic is 6.5 percentage points. That's quite a large delta. In terms of pick 1, obviously we see the same thing as with the colors, that the win rate in pick 2 is higher. And I don't know exactly why that is. Maybe it's an easier way of drafting, and people who are better versed can actually benefit from the fact that you have 2 picks. And that's why the delta between the 17Lands users who are versed in draft and the non-17Lands users who maybe are on average less well versed in drafts is bigger, because they can benefit more from getting those early pick, early direction, and navigating the lanes. But Orzhov has 60% win rate and is the top win rate color pair. Boros is actually second at 57.5, and Izzet is third at 57.3. But the difference is marginal between those two. Then we have Golgari at 56.3 and Simic at 55.7. So here the difference between the best and the worst archetype is only 4.2. So from 6.5 to 4.2, that's a much smaller difference between the best and the worst archetype. It's way more balanced in pick 2. And probably it is because there are 5 color pairs and 4 people at the pod. Because of that, there is always going to be one that is open. If you can identify what is open and draft it when it's open, you're going to get probably a better deck. In pick 1 draft, you are competing for 5 supported archetypes, maybe 6 with that multicolor deck, across 8 players, which means that you might find a lane that is sort of open but not completely open. And small things, but if you are drafting Simic as the only person at the table, or if you're drafting Simic as one of the 2 people at the table, that might be a big difference in terms of how strong your deck is going to be. You might just not get this, key amount of important cards, and because of that, you will be not winning as reliably as you do in pick 1 draft. So I think that the pick 2, what I call is gentleman's agreement kind of drafting, when you go into your lanes and if everyone at the table understands what's going on, you're going to draft an open color pair, and that kind of thing will probably impact favorably how your draft is going to look like if you understand the rules of engagement in that type of draft. Okay, so that's for the color power. Let's move to the actual color evaluation. Yeah, a friend of yours a friend Sabrina in the chat says that a friend of theirs called this cooperating with your neighbors or something to that effect. And yeah, it is this kind of like dynamics where you pick a lane in the first 2 picks, which is the first pick. If you end up on an open lane, perfect, because that means that multiple people in the same pod have picked the same lane. If not, on the wheel or even just before the wheel, you will see that good cards in particular color combinations are going late, and you can react accordingly. And because of that, most of the time, after picking 8 cards, or maybe after picking 10 cards, you know exactly what you're drafting, and you can adjust your actions accordingly. While in pick 1 draft, you will sometimes dance, pivot, and bob and weave, and still not be able to find your lane. And because of that, you're going to lose a couple of percentage points of your win rate. Now, is the win rate between 56 and 57 large? No. I mean, it literally means that if you play 100 games of that particular format, you're likely to win 1 more game in pick 2 draft than in pick 1 draft. And put that in this perspective, it doesn't seem much. Okay, so now we can move to evaluating the actual cards. And normally what I do in this first stream, no, it was a dog, 26Lands. So normally what I do in this stream, I look at the top win rate bombs, top commons, and top uncommons. Bombs, I define them very loosely as cards with over 61% win rate that are of higher rarity. Okay, white bombs, and there's plenty of them. There's actually 4 of them. 4 cards have a win rate of over 61% as a game in hand win rate. Sally Pride, Lioness Leader, that's the best rare probably in the format. It's a 5 mana 2/4. When it enters, you create X 2/2s, where X is the number of non-token creatures you control. So minimum 1 because it's there. I mean, minimum is 0 if you cast it on an empty board and they kill it in response to the trigger, but okay. Also, when it attacks, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, which normally ends up to be something like, I cast my 2/4, I make 2 or 3 2/2s, next turn I attack, my 2/2s become 3/3s, this becomes a 3/5. It's just a horrendously outrageous card, and it's very hard to favorably trade with it in any form or shape. Agent Bishop, Men in Black, is the second best white bomb, and this is just a 3 mana 1/2, but at the beginning of combat on each of your turns, you put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. So it can put the counters on itself and a friend, and they start growing. It's very much like Luminarch Aspirant, but double, and you pay 1 more mana. Then we have the Triceraton Commander, a mythic. And yes, there was a mythic cock-up by the WotC. They made the mythic cards drop at 4 times the rate that they should have been dropping. This has been fixed since then, and let's leave it at that. still, that thanks to that, maybe an unintended side effect of that situation is that we do have good data sample sizes on the mythic rares early in the format, which is great. But yeah, Triceratops Commander is a white XX for a 2/2 flying. When this creature attacks, dinosaurs you control other than this creature get +1/+1 and flying until end of turn. And when it enters, you create X 2/2 white dinosaur soldier creature tokens. So, if you cast it for 4, you get a 2/2 flyer with a 2/2. That becomes a 3/3 flyer if you attack with the commander. And, scales up 6 mana, you get 2 2/2s and whatever. I mean, great card, It's good early. Like, even white 2/2 flyer is not a terrible card, but obviously you want to play it probably for minimum 4 mana and get the other 2/2 and start attacking with the flyers. And then one more card that made it, Leonardo Sewer Samurai, 3 and a white for a 3/3 double striker. And during your turn, you may cast creature spells with power or toughness 1 or less from your graveyard. If you cast a spell this way, that creature enters with finality counter. And furthermore, it has sneak for 2 white, which means that if you have an unblocked creature, after the declare blockers phase, you can pay the 4 mana and put it directly into the battlefield, tapped and attacking, bouncing the creature that was unblocked. So you just basically hit them for 6 out of the blue. And later you can start casting your 1 power or 1 toughness creatures from the graveyard on top of that, so you accrue value through that. Yeah, all of those cards are great, but Sully Pride, Lioness Leader is just amazing and super strong. Top white commons. You see, I did some creative changes in one of the arts, but okay. Maybe that will convince people to go on YouTube and watch it instead of listening to it as a podcast. But we have April O'Neil, Kunoichi trainee, is the top white common, which is maybe a bit surprising. I was expecting the Uneasy Alliance to be the top white common, but April O'Neil turns out that being a good enabler for sneak in black-white decks and being still a decent smoother of the draws for the white-red deck is just enough. It's a 2 mana 2/2. When it enters, scry 2. And this reminds me of another card that was a very powerful common in Tarkir Dragonstorm, the Mardu Devotee, which also had the scry 2. It's so good to have that early scry so that you can fix what you need. If you don't need more lands, you can scry the lands to the bottom. If you need more lands, you can scry lands to the top. Just a great way of fixing your draws. And that also makes it less atrocious when you draw it late in the game, because late in the game you know exactly what you need, and then you know exactly what to swipe to the bottom or not. Also, this thing cannot be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater, which means that most likely it will trade with something if it gets blocked. And if it doesn't get blocked, you're quite happy to rebuy it, because you will regain that scry 2 effect. And this is nice because, when you're sneaking things, usually you have to, you always have to return a creature, but usually, you want to return a 1-drop because it's easy to replay for that 1 mana. But sometimes what you want to do is also rebuy an effect. And Scry 2 is probably, like cool half mana effect. It's not worth full mana, but it's worth half a mana, which means that, in fact, when you're rebuying April O'Neil, you will have to pay 2 for it, but you sort of recoup the half that you used for the original Scry. And that makes it much more favorable to return than other 2-drops that, let's say, are just a 2/2 with some combat ability that doesn't matter and doesn't accrue any value. So you get it like this. Second best white common, Uneasy Alliance. That's 2 mana for a pacifism, and then you can do 5 mana. You can sacrifice the Uneasy Alliance, and then you exile the creature that was enchanted by it, and you create a 1/1 ninja on your side, and you can only activate it as a sorcery. And the third best white common, and that probably will be a surprise because we are used to the fact that white land cyclers are the crappiest of them all, and no one wants to play them, and they're always rubbish compared to everything else. Even in Lord of the Rings, where where the cyclers were pretty much busted. The white one was an outlier in the wrong direction. But here we have Jenica, Bad Apple, Big Sister, 5 mana 3/3 that enters with a 2/2 mutant creature token friend and has plain cycling for 2. It's actually a good card, and it's probably the best of the land cyclers in this particular set. So very uncharacteristically, white gets a very strong land cycler. So yeah, don't sleep on this card because people are still sleeping on it, and start playing it more aggressively. It's a very solid 5-drop, and I'm pretty sure that it will become a sort of like a blueprint for the future land cyclers for white, that there will be a more expensive version of the, hey, I come in and I bring a friend kind of creature. Okay, top uncommons. I know you would have probably never guessed, but Mighty Mutanimals is the top uncommon in white. This card is just outrageously good. It's 4 mana for a 2/1 that makes a 2/2 and has an alliance ability. Whenever another creature you control enters, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Which means that it comes basically as a 5/4 stats across 2 or 3 bodies. Some of that can be hasty because, you know, you have a 2/2, let's say. You cast Mighty Mutanimals. You make the 2/2 into a 3/3. Now it has favorable attacks. It can attack, so you unlock a lot of damage. If the Mighty Mutanimals survive, Lord only knows how many other creatures are you going to be playing next turn and how much extra value you're going to be accruing. I've made a tweet about it, and basically it's the corporate wants to know the difference between those two pictures format, where I have this and Writhing Chrysalis. And honestly, I think that there are many similarities between those two cards in terms of how you cannot favorably trade with those cards. I managed once to trade favorably with Mighty Mutanimals because I cast my 8 mana Shark 9/6 that kills 3 things on enter, and then that dealt with Mighty Mutanimals, the token, and the counter recipient, and I still left that exchange with a 9/6 on the board. But it's a rare situation when you can actually do a favorable trade. There's just the multitude of bodies it provides, the outrageous bursts of activity you're going to get, even if it's dealt with, and if it's not dealt with, it's even worse. All those things make me think of those two cards like in the same category. And in terms of power level, this is going to be, I'm going to wait a couple of days or a week or so before I make that graph. But I want to show the Mighty Mutanimals in my normalized win rate comparison between different sets. And I can guarantee you already now that it's going to be a very strong outlier in terms of power at uncommon compared to any other uncommon. But enough about Mighty Mutanimals. They might appear later. Other top uncommons in white. Koya, Death from the Above. It's the 3 mana 2/1 flyer. When it enters, you can exile up to 1 other target creature. At the beginning of your next end step, you may pay 4 mana, including 1 black, if you don't return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. So it basically is 7 mana 2/1 flyer that kills, exiles anything. And if not, it's just a 3 mana 2/1 that blinks something. And you know, blinking something like Mighty Mutanimals, not a bad idea. And then third one we have is Lita, Little Orphan Amphibian. 1 and a white for a 2/1, and it has an alliance. Whenever another creature you control enters, you can choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. You either put a counter on it, you create a food, or you scry 1. And there are some amazing things about this card. So it grows linearly, but quite consistently. Most of the time you're going to be putting counters on Lita. But if you cast multiple bodies and you cannot put 2 counters on it per turn, then you can either scry or make a food, depending on what is more beneficial for you. Issues with that card is that, you know, in this particular set, I would think that it would be better if you just had to put a +1/+1 counter on this card as an ability. There is a hybrid 3-drop that has exactly this ability, and its main advantage is that it grows as the game progresses in those jumps, because there's so many cards that make 2 bodies. Like, you can think of that. I play Lita into another creature, into Mighty Mutanimals, into Jenica, and then I put so many bodies, and it outgrows what my opponent can deploy to block it, and because of that, the card is good. Lita does not have that ability, but it grows consistently until it becomes big enough to warrant a double block, and you're sort of warning with that. And if you put those multiple bodies, you also got some scry things that will allow you to hit the creatures more reliably. In your games. In terms of so that sort of sums up white. We're going to go into white color pairs at some stage as well. So now blue. And there's only one card that fulfills the bomb criterion for blue, and that's April O'Neil, Hacktivist. Another card I think people maybe are a bit low on. It's actually actively great. It's at worst, it's you cast it and it gets killed at instant speed, but there's not that much on instant speed that can kill it. So that's one plus because it's a 1/5. At worst, if it survives till the end of your turn, it is a 4-mana 1/5 that draws you a card. Because at the beginning of your end step, draw a card for each card type among spells you've cast this turn. And you've cast April O'Neil, Hacktivist, on the turn that you've cast it, which is a creature, so you draw one card for the creature. It becomes so much better if you are able to untap with it and then cast an artifact creature. That's drawing 2 cards end of turn. And then maybe an instant, and that's drawing 3 cards at the end of the turn. It's really problematic not to mill yourself out when you have April O'Neil couple of turns uncontended. And you're hitting your land drops, you're hitting your spells, it's all going well, while the body is really hard to get rid of. So don't sleep on this card, it's pretty strong. In terms of top blue commons, first of all, I would like to give some credit to where the credit is due. Last week we had the skeleton stream, and Jason E was talking about exactly those 3 cards as a shell of their blue X skeletons. There was a Dimir one and the Simic one. And literally these 3 cards are the top 3 blue commons. Return to the Sewers, put something on top or bottom and you make a mutagen token for your troubles. Buzzbots, a 2-mana 1/1 flying vigilance. When it dies, draw a card. And Sewer Valence Cam, blue for an artifact with flash. By the way, we learned in the chat that this is literally one of the cards that Michael 10,000 is finding success with in Jeskai and Azorius builds so far. And then, it's a blue for an artifact with flash. When it enters or leaves the battlefield, you may tap or untap target creature, and you can sacrifice it for 4 mana to draw 2 cards. So all those 3 cards were something that Jason pointed out can make a great core of a blue tempo deck, and indeed it turns out that they still got it. They still understand Magic. Shocking to no one, but worth noticing. In terms of the top uncommons in blue, number 1 is Metalhead. 5 mana for a 4/4. Bounces an artifact or a creature on enters. Any player, so you can bounce something of your own, something of theirs. And for a red and sacrificing another artifact, you can put a counter on Metalhead, and it gains menace and haste until end of turn, which is multiple upsides there, because first of all, later in the game you can just cast it and attack with haste, not to mention menace. And even if you cast it for 5 and it cannot attack on turn 1, later you can just convert all the artifacts that you have into some kind of value. And there's also this threat of activation when it becomes blocked. You block it on 2 3/3s. Well, maybe you can just sacrifice 2 random artifacts and make it survive. Why not? And if it's not blocked, you can just cheese out wins out of nowhere, because you just make it into an 8/8, and that's enough to steal the game. So lots of good things about that card. Second best blue uncommon is Ooze Spill, and this again is one of the cards that people are still sleeping on. It's a 3-mana counter spell, so 1 blue for a counter spell. That also makes a mutagen token. And that extra thing, the Saruman something from Lord of the Rings, when you got a mass 1. The refute from Foundations, where you where you did the loot. All those things are just so much improving on the cancel variant. And turns out making a mutagen token is great. And yeah, one of the top win rate cards in blue, and definitely not drafted as such. As wasn't the Saruman's something. I don't remember what it was, Saruman's off, but you know what I'm talking about. That card was also underdrafted throughout the format, even though it was one of the top uncommons in that very powerful set. And then we have Ray Filet, the Man Ray. 4 mana for a 3/3 flyer. Again, this is not a stat line that we're thrilled about, but it enters with the mutagen token. So sort of air elemental, because well, you can pay 1 extra mana and make it into a 5 mana 4/4 flyer. And it has more. You can, for 2, remove a counter from a creature you control to draw a card. That's a great ability because, well, first of all, probably the first removal spell that the opponent can target something with is going to be targeted at Ray Filet. And if you have 2 mana untapped, you can just then remove a counter to draw a card, and that way you basically treating it as a cantripping flyer. And maybe in some games it doesn't get killed, and you have some counters that you're not stoked about, and you can, through that, sort of draw enough cards to flood opponent in value. And also, it's a beater, like 4/4 flyer is pretty good. Okay, black. The bombs, we have Armagon, Future Shark, 8 mana, so black 6, for a flash 9/6 creature. When it enters, destroy up to 3 target creatures. I was playing a deck with 2 copies of that, and my opponents were not very thrilled about the second one when it entered. I can tell you that. It's a great creature. The fact that it says flash, it literally means that it's most of the time it's going to be a 4/4/1 because you just flash it in combat, block something, and kill other 3 things, and all of a sudden the game just swings like 180 degrees. It's amazing. Of course, it's an 8 mana thing, so you need to have ways of being able to cast it for that 8 mana. And that's where, you know, all those frog butlers, your everything pizzas that let you hit the lands, all of those things come in super handy. So powerful card, but it's sort of built around where you need to make sure that your deck can survive long enough to get 8 mana, and also that it can get 8 mana faster than you would normally get. Like normally we're looking at turn 10, turn 11 to hit 8 mana mark. You probably want to be there in turn, 9 average, and then you're quite happy playing Armagon, or even 2. Then we have Cloning of Shredder. That's 6 mana for a saga. Exile target. So it has 3 chapters. First chapter is exile target creature card from your graveyard. Create a token that is a copy of it, except it's not legendary, and it's a mutant in addition to its other types. And then chapters 2 and 3, you just make another copy of those things, then it's also not legendary, and it's also a mutant. So you basically exile something from your graveyard to make, over time, 3 copies of that. And there's plenty of things that you can copy with it. Most of the time that I've seen it doing something good, it was when opponent copied one of the land cyclers, most of the time the green one, which is the 7/7. And, you ask opponent a very simple question. Are you capable of answering 3 7/7s? And very often the answer is no. So that's how strong it is. But of course, if you're so lucky and you have some looting effects or whatever, you can copy things like Armagon, Future Shark, and then you have 3 copies of that, and good luck to the opponent if they can deal with 3 copies of that. So yeah, two black bombs. Top commons, and that was a big surprise to me. This Squirrelanoids is the top black common for now. It's just a black for a 1/1 Death Toucher. That's it. That's all you need, really. Super strong in white-black, but also pretty strong in black-green as a more like stabilizer, blocker, and stopper of the opponent from making meaningful attacks. Because who wants to attack into a one Death Touch? I played it also in the Ninjas deck. I was capable of giving it +1/+0 and Menace, and literally no one wants to double block a 2/1 Death Toucher with Menace. No one. Which means that you get all the sneak that you can into the late game, and it was just great. But yeah, I mean, really important card for many decks, and I think that it's a necessary condition to have a couple of them in your Ninjas deck, because you want to build your Ninjas deck as a sneak enabling deck. And that is vindicated with the second best black common, Orokusaki Shredder Rising. It's a 3-mana 3/1, and when it deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card and lose 1 life. Now, I don't know how you managed to connect with Orokusaki in a normal game, in a format that is full of 1/1 robot tokens lying around. It does have sneak for 1 in the black. And this is where Squirrel Noids come in important, and some other cards. Because you want to have a 1-drop, and then 1-drop that has good attacks, that can sneak Orokusaki. Once you make that one connection, and you draw your card, you're super ahead in that game, and Orokusaki can attack 1 more time, trade with something, and you're quite happy about that exchange. Yeah, I don't think it's a card that you want to be playing and casting for 3 mana and hoping that you can connect, because that's just not how it works. I've seen some maybe games where people gave it flying or something, and that's how it managed to connect. Anchovy and Banana Pizza is the 3rd best black common, and first of multiple black removal spells that are pretty strong. Anchovy and Banana Pizza, of course, 2 black for a food artifact, and when it enters, destroy target creature, and you can sacrifice it as you would with the food. That's for 2 mana, and you gain 3 life. So far, worth noting, we've seen Uneasy Alliance, Koya Death from the Above, Return to Sewers, and some tempo removal like Uzpil, Metalhead, and Sewer Valence Camp, but there was quite a lot of it. And of course, the Armagon is also a removal spell. In uncommons, well, first of all, let's talk about the Dream Beavers. Or as I call them, Nightmare Beavers, because it's a literal nightmare seeing that cast on turn 1 by your opponent. And I never had them. This card is comparable in win rate with Mutanimals. It's not as high, but it's not that far off. And it's clearly the 2nd best uncommon in the set. And it's a 1-drop, black for a 1/1 flyer. When this creature enters, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life and scry 1. This is like April O'Neil. Remember when I was talking about this, how important is that scry 2? Well, this is April O'Neil on steroids, because this one is literally unblockable for the first turns. You can sneak anything if it is not killed on sight, which it rarely can be, because there is what 1 mana removal do we have in this set? Which means that you're almost always gonna get Orokusaki on turn 2 if you have it in your deck, for example. And then you recast the beavers and you do more draining of life and some more scrying. It's just horrendous to deal with, and it's literally the reason to be ninjas. I would definitely want to start with this rather than some good sneak card, because this is such a unique effect and such an important effect that it's irreplaceable in those decks. And this card, I'm super happy to first pick if I ever was lucky enough to open it in anything. But I was not. And then we have like a cliff, really. I'm just going to check with the 17Lands data, but if I remember correctly, there was like maybe 5 percentage point, 5.4 percentage point drop between Dream Beavers, which are at 64% game and hand win rate, and then Death in the Family, which is 58 and a bit game and hand win rate. So a cliff really between those two, but it's still a decent removal, Death in the Family. 2 mana for an instant, exile target creature with mana value 3 or less. It's a solid removal, nothing more to be said. Might be, if it was 1 mana, it would be great and constructed, but maybe for 2, it's just not good enough. And then Shredder's Technique, 3 mana or sneak for black. Destroy target creature or enchantment. Don't forget that you can kill enchantment with it. If an enchantment was destroyed this way, you lose 2 life. These are comparable in terms of the power level, but not comparable with the Dream Beavers. Okay, red bombs. Yep, that's it. That's the end. Not a single red card managed to cross the bar of 61% game in hand win rate. The closest one, I think, was Ravenous Bots, the 2-1 that makes a 1-1 whenever you cast an artifact, and that was 59 or something, so quite far off of being a bomb, really. Quite far off of being Dream Beavers, even. A level of death in the family. That's the best that red can have in this format. In terms of commons, here we also, I show 3 of them for every color combination, but realistically here we are looking at 2 commons. Mauser Foundry and Manhole Missile. Mauser Foundry is a 2-mana artifact. When it enters or leaves, you make a 1/1 colorless robot artifact creature token, and for 5 mana you can sacrifice Mauser Foundry to deal 3 damage to target creature. So yeah, it's 7 mana across multiple turns, make 2 1/1s and deal 3 to something. It's really solid. It's really important for those artifact decks, but also I think it's a pretty reasonable splash in your everything pizza decks, or definitely is good also in the Boros. So I don't think it is home specific. I'm pretty sure it's going to be slightly better in the Izzet decks, where you can, I don't know, play nobody to bounce it also to your hand to make 1 more robot. And Manhole Missile, lovely name, great card. 2 mana for an instant, deal 3 damage to target creature. You may put a card from your hand on the bottom of your library. If you do, draw a card. So yeah, solid. And then we have a big gap between those and the third one, just to give you the proper numbers here. These are at around 59% game and head win rate, and the third Raphael Tough Turtle is at 54. So 5 percentage points difference between these two and this one. So they're not the same, really. Which means red has realistically 2 good commons, and then the rest is sort of meh. And it's the similar story, really, with the uncommons in red, where we have Casey Jones Jury Rig just this year at 60.5% win rate, so really strong, but also strong and very specific, because we're talking about 2 mana, 2/1 haste. When it enters, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal an artifact card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. So it's like if you make your deck right, a lot of the time it's going to be like a Kithkin, Eclipse Kithkin that also has haste for some reason, because it will draw you a card, and it's a 2/1 body for 2 mana. It's mainly going to be in Izzet, because you will have the right density of artifacts in that. But I can see Boros decks that will be happily playing it. I think that if you have like 6 artifacts in the deck, probably you're okay playing it. Just you have to keep in mind that, good half of the time you're going to be missing on it. Once you get to 8, 9, you're going to be more reliably hitting something with it. And then we have Spicy Oatmeal Pizza. That's an artifact, so that could be found by Casey Jones Jury Rig just this year. 3 mana food. When it enters, it deals 4 damage to any target. Remember, it goes face. Sometimes, you killing an opponent is okay, better than accruing value. Also deals 3 damage to you. And you can pay 2, tap it, sacrifice it, gain 3 life. So that's a good thing to find with Casey Jones Jury Rig just this year, but it's also going to be great in the 5-color decks and in the Boros decks. It's just going to be good all over the place. Not as good as the Casey Jones, but it's still good enough for 58. And then we have the third, which is still at 56, General Track, Heart of Stone, 5 mana 4/3 with Trample. When it enters, you may sacrifice another artifact. When you do, it deals 4 damage to target creature. So yeah, solid artifact, again, found by Casey Jones. And it has around 57% game in hand win rate. But if we go past General Trug, the next uncommon in red, Wingnut, Bat on the Belfry, is 54%. So big difference. And 54 is nothing appealing to me. So red has like 3 solid uncommons and not more than that. Okay, green bombs. Nope, we don't have any. Again, as with red, we don't have any bombs. We do have Michelangelo Weirdness to 11. That's a 2-mana 1/1. When it enters, you make a mutagen, and if one or more counters we put on a creature you control, you put that many +1. But Michelangelo didn't make it by 0.1 percentage points, which means I want to mention it, but I'm not going to show the picture of it because I am sticking to my rules. But I just it's very close. And there is actually a green card that crosses that level, but it's an uncommon. So my rule that bombs have to be rare or mythic stays, and therefore green doesn't have bombs. Top commons. Frog Butler is by far the top green common. It almost is there in terms of like reaching the bomb level. It has 60.5% game in hand win rate, so better than any rare. Any rare except for Michelangelo Weirdness to 11. Really solid card. The flipping of the stats on the Poison Dart Frog, genius masterstroke. It's even stronger than it was, and it was pretty strong already. So 1/1 Death Touch, taps for any mana, and then for 2 it can gain reach until end of turn. Pick that card. That's like a reason to be green, really, and reason to be 5-color as well. Then we have Primordial Pachyderm at 3 and green, a 4/4 reach trample. When this creature enters, you gain 2 life. Now, first of all, what that card tells us is that in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, they are using an outdated taxonomy, as pachyderms are no longer a recognized clade. And that has been discounted by the advances in DNA sequencing, and we now look at the relatedness between life forms through the lens of how close their DNA is related. While the 19th century, or maybe even 18th century, division onto pachyderms, which contained elephants, rhinos, hippopotamuses, it was based on, I look at the animal, it's big, it must be related closely. In fact, when we looked at it, rhinos and elephants are really far from each other. There is much more close relationship between elephants and dugongs than between elephants and rhinos. So clearly, despite mutagen being such an important part of the Mutant Ninja Turtles lore, they still don't know much about DNA. Because if they knew a lot about DNA, they would have figured out the taxonomy system that looks at DNA similarities. Clearly they don't, which means maybe that's where there are so many mutated animals, in that they don't understand how DNA works, and therefore mutagen can have massive effects because they just don't understand the importance of protecting your DNA from the mutagenic effects. Anyway, talking about the card itself, Primordial Pachyderm, 3 and a green for a 4/4 reach trample. When it enters, you gain 2 life. This is a really strong card at 57.5% game in hand win rate. And it still goes quite late. People don't pick it highly enough, and they should. Also works fine with the Butler, because turn 2 Butler into turn 3 Pachyderm is a great curve out. Another card that plays great with the Butler is Tenderize, the third best green common. And this one is just a bite spell at instant speed. And of course, Butler having Death Touch. It's Butler has Death Touch. Pachyderm is big. I mean, it just aligns very well. And again, this format has not that much of instant speed removal. And sometimes you just cast something and say, okay, if they have Tenderize, I just lost the game. If they don't, I won the game. And they always have it. I'm not speaking from personal experience here at all. And worth mentioning that there is a fourth green common at a similar level as Tenderize and Primordial Pachyderm, and that's Ragamuffin Raptor, the 5-mana 4/3 that is a Gravedigger for food as well. That one has 57%. And then we have a drop-off, and the rest of them are just not like that impressive. In terms of the uncommons, we have our top uncommon in green, and that's Courier of Comestibles. This card has 62% game in hand win rate. It doesn't look much. 2-mana 1/2 that tutors for a food. But there is just such a good variety of food. It's not only that there's a lot of food, but there's a good variety. You have your Everything pizza can fetch you a land. So basically, if you have it, your courier of comestibles is a land tutor via additional steps. You have the anchovy pizza, which you can fetch. That's a removal. You have pizza face, which is a creature that is expensive and accrues value over the game. That's another good target. You have the kitty, which is a 1/3, a cheap creature you can get. Fine. You have guac, which is another way of a combat trick. Well, it's not going to be a trick if they know that you have it in your hand, but still. You have Omni Cheese Pizza, which is a card draw and mana fixing. It's like so many of them, and all of them are working in such a good way. So yeah, Courier does a lot of work. It's still, I don't think it's picked as high as it should be, and it should be picked very high. I had a deck with 3 of them, and it was just like, I can do whatever I please, and I can pick all my cards from the deck, and happy time. Boom. Then we have Novel Nunchaku. 3 mana for an equipment. When it enters, you attach it, and then the creature that you attach it to fights something, and it gets +1/+1 and trample. I had a game against no other than Ethan Sachs of the Lords of Limited fame in the early access, where I just cast turn 3 Bebop and Rocksteady. That's a 7/5. Turn 4 Novel Nunchaku on Bebop and Rocksteady, kill something, and start slamming for 8, and I just saw it because the trample is so useful. There's so many big creatures that just cannot push through, and so many things that generate 1/1s, and that Novel Nunchaku allows to break those locks quite proficiently. Like, a lot of the time, especially when you have like Pizza Face that is unopposed, you're going to have massive creatures, but you can't just push them through because the opponent is just like, I'll make a 1/1 and chump. Well, not with Novel Nunchaku. So that card is good, and Fight Spell is still okay if you give some kind of boost to the creature, and especially if that boost stays even after the creature is dead. That's a great combination. And Saved by the Shell, another card that people I think are still way too low on. This one has 59% win rate, same as Nunchaku basically. It's a 2 mana instant, costs 1 less if you control a turtle. You put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. It gains trample, hexproof, and indestructible until end of turn. Strange that it doesn't take into account that clams have also shells. I guess that clams cannot use the shells for saving anything. Then we have the multicolor bombs. And here we definitely see the main beneficiary of mythics being printed 4 times often in the arena. Last Ronin. It's a saga. Starts with the Wrath and then goes to mill 4 cards, return a creature to your hand, and 3 if you attack with a single creature this turn, you put 3 counters on it. It gains trample, lifelink, and indestructible until end of turn. I assume that it has to attack alone for the flavor reasons, and also for the fact that most of the things is Wrath. That card is super busted. It's the one of the top 3 cards in the set. In fact, it's currently the second best after Sally Pride at 68.8. Just 0.2 percentage points short of greatness. By the way, Sally Pride has 71.6, which is just insane for a rare. It's not good. It's not good that there's such a powerful rare. Third best card in the set is an uncommon Mighty Mutanimals. Also not a very good thing for that set. But here we are. I mean, the set is still fun to play because sometimes you win against Mutanimals. Another bomb that we have here, Don and Leo Problem Solvers. It's a 5-drop in 3 Hybrid Azorius. It's a 4/6 Vigilant, which is pretty good stat line already for a 4/6, for a 5-drop. And each turn you can exile up to 1 target artifact you control, and up to 1 target creature you control, and then return them to the battlefield under their owner's control. And you can do some horrendous things with that. I don't know. You really don't need to work very hard in the black-white deck to have this with the anchovy and banana pizza and just kill something every turn, while also doing that same thing with even just the guy that makes a 1/1, or God forbid, Mutanimals. And you just accrue so much value of it. And it's super hard to kill as well. So sometimes opponents will struggle winning with that card. I managed to beat it once, but I definitely managed not to beat it a couple of times already. So yeah, it's very, very difficult to deal with. Then we have Dark Leo and Shredder. Simply looking card, again, beneficiary of the mythic conundrum. White and black for a 1/3. Attacking ninjas you control have Death Touch. Good luck blocking anything. And then whenever Dark Leo and Shredder deal combat damage to a player, you create a 1/1 black ninja creature token. Then if you control 5 or more ninjas, that player loses half their life rounded up. And it has Sneak for white-black, so basically the same cost as it is. So with Sneaks, it makes a 1/1 for sure, and then and then maybe makes them lose some life. I'm pretty sure that there is a black and white, maybe even like Esper Ninja's deck in Standard. Like Kaito makes an emblem that pumps all the ninjas. That will be busted with the deck that already wants to be sneaking, therefore also will be good in making ninjutsu. But also limited Dark Leo and Shredder is pretty strong. Okay, then we have Northwind Avatar. 5 mana, 5/5 flying. I have no further questions. That's a good card. And then when this creature enters, if you cast it, you may put a card you own from outside the game into your hand. And this is a great way of, like, if you pick Northwind Avatar, having this red or blue land cycler in the sideboard is fantastic, because you don't miss it in your deck, because you don't want to have too many 5-drops. But if you can cast Northwind Avatar and bring it into the deck, fine. A couple of the cards that are maybe more sideboard oriented also will work fine with that, because basically what it means is that you cast it and you bring something from your sideboard to your hand. So you want to have some kind of extended sideboard where you actively want some of the cards. And I think that the land cyclers are the easiest ones, because you will get them quite easily in the draft, and you probably don't want to put many of them into your deck. So good target for Northwind Avatar. Then we have Mickey and Leo, Chaos and Order. Selesnya Hybrid for a 2/2. Whenever you put counter on a creature you control, draw a card, but this ability triggers only once each turn. Yeah, very good value creature. You just get a lot of counters on things quite easily. Mutagen allows you to control when you put them, because that ability triggers only once each turn. So you might want to, have a selection of when you draw the extra cards. And last bomb that we have in Multicolor is Ralph and Leo, sibling rivals. 1 Boros Hybrid for a 2/4. When they attack, if it's the first combat phase of the turn, which hints you that there's going to be a second one. Untap 1 or 2 target attacking creatures. After this phase, there is an additional combat phase. So that's basically Fear of Missing Out with Delirium preloaded on it. And untapping 2 creatures, which is great. Obviously good when you have something with Vigilance on top of that. Yeah, but great cards. But we don't only have multicolor cards at higher rarities. We also have common ones. And here is the cycle of 10. So 2 for each supported color pair. And there are 2 of them that are just much above the rest of them. First of them, Nobody. 1 Izzet Hybrid for a 3/2. When it enters, return up to 1 target artifact you control to its owner hand, scry 1. So if you don't have anything to return, whatever. If you cast the Mauser Foundry on turn 2 and cast Nobody on turn 3, you can bounce back your Foundry, make a 1/1, scry something, and then you can recast the Foundry later to make another 1/1. So you got the full value of it. It's a really great card. I played it even there was a Pauper challenge in the midweek Magic. I played like a Dimir deck with the 3 Nobodies to bounce back my Tithing Blades, and it was super fun to play. But also in this format, it's great. There's plenty of stuff that you want to be actively bouncing back to your hand. Yeah, the Foundry makes an extra token when you return it, and it's the same that you can cast Nobody, return sewer valence bots and tap something to open up attacks or something. There's plenty of things that you can do with it. And the second one that is super good is a Mechanized Ninja Cavalry. One Boros hybrid for a 1/1. When it enters, you make another 1/1. That's it. Simple as that. Great for sneaking things in. If you can sneak Mechanized Ninja Cavalry because somehow they never blocked it, oh boy, you're feeling like a $1,000,000. Also, great with nobody, because picking up Mechanized Ninja Cavalry allows you to recast it and get an extra 1/1. So all those things good. And then we move to the sort of secondary tier, which I think is the next 5 cards, including Foot Ninjas. That's a 6 mana 5/5 with Sneak for 4, and when it enters, you gain 3 life. I underestimate this card. I thought it would be crap, honestly, because it's just looks clunky. But to gain 3, the fact that you manage to connect with 5 unblockable damage, sometimes end games, all those things accumulate, and I think it's like one tier above the rest. It's not as good as the Cavalry and Nobody, but it's actually pretty solid. It's 55.7% win rate. And I think that, mainly should be played in its own color combination. But yeah, it's fine. I have to start noticing it more in the packs, honestly, after doing this episode. Then we have Slithering Cryptid, and these are sort of like replaceable cards in your deck. You might want to play one, but you're not thrilled to play them. Slithering Cryptid, 3 mana for a 2/3, and it makes a mutagen when it enters, 54.4. Mauser Mark, also 54.4. 2 mana, 1 in Izzet hybrid, 2/3. This creature can't attack unless you control another artifact. Arguably, it can block whenever you want, so pretty good defensive creature in general, but can only attack when you have artifacts, so probably you want to be playing it in the Izzet deck that is full of artifacts. Same, 54.3, EPF Point Squad, 1 Boros Hybrid for a 2/1 alliance. Whenever another creature you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. In some decks, it's going to grow rapidly, but you really want to make sure that you put multiple bodies on the board every single turn, because casting it at 3 mana and then next turn casting a creature to make it a 3/2 still probably doesn't open up any attacks. What opens up attacks for it is casting it on turn 3 and then casting a Mechanized Ninja Cavalry and a 2-drop on the next turn, and then you have a 5/4. That's very much more likely to be able to attack. Probably still not. You maybe want to follow up with turn 5 Jenica to make it 7/6, and then you can attack and reliably double trade it, and then you feel like you are ahead on this game. So make sure that when you put that in your deck, that you have those multiple bodies cards in abundance. Then we have Ice Cream Kitty. That's the same tier, but 53.6. 2 mana, 1 in Golgari hybrid for a 1/3. It's a food. It's a mutant. It's a cat. 2 and sacrifice another creature token. You can draw a card only as a sorcery. Mind that all the guac pizzas, the anchovy pizzas, are not tokens. You cannot sacrifice them for that ability. I'm sure it works in paper, but it won't work on Arena. And then for 2 and a tap, you can sacrifice it and gain 3 life. Because it's a creature, you can't do it on the turn you cast it because of a summoning sickness. So it's a food with summoning sickness, which is not a good combination, food and sickness, is it? And then we have like the ones that I wouldn't be putting in the same tier. Foot Elite, that's just a 3 mana 2/4. When it attacks, it gives something +1/+0 and indestructible until end of turn. We've seen that card before in Duskmorn. Very similar card, would just cost white, and it was not great there, and this one is not great either. Punk Frogs, 3 Simic Hybrid for a 4/5 with Ward 3. It's super hard to kill, but it's also super whatever. I don't care. Dies to a 1/1 Death Toucher. And Putrid Pulse at 47.8, clearly the worst one. So, like, Punk Frogs is a dumb big beast that is hard to kill. Putrid Pulse is a dumb beast, sometimes big, that is also very easy to kill. Okay, And we have also 10 Signpost uncommons. So 2 for each color pair. And here, most of them are good to great. But 4 of them are great. And starting with Tainted Treats, 1 black-green for an instant, destroy target artifact or creature. If its mana value was 4 or less, create a food token. Instant speed, I think, is the key information here. Killing anything at instant speed is just so good. Also, destroys an artifact which can kill the everything pizza before it makes makes you sad. A noble dragon. I don't know which card is goated according to you. Punk frogs or putrid pals. We might learn later. So yeah, Tainted Tree is great. Golgari is not the highest win rate archetype, and this having such a high win rate, I think it's a card that you definitely need to have in your multicolor decks in order to survive. So yeah. And 4 or less, that basically almost always gives you a food token. So it's just like 1 mana cheaper, easier to cast, bake into a pie. So that's how you should think about it. That also is a shatter for some reason. Brilliance Unleashed, 61.5, so just a smidgen below Tainted Treats. 6 mana, choose 1 or both. It deals 5 to target creature, or choose target artifact card in your graveyard, return it to the battlefield if it's an artifact creature card. Otherwise, return it to the battlefield, and it's a 3/3 robot artifact creature with flying. This is an Izzet card or a 5-color card, because a 5-color deck will often play those Omni Cheese pizzas, everything pizzas that will go to the graveyard, maybe artichoke, whatever, and it will have tools to get into 6 mana earlier, and it will have tools to cast blue and red card as well. So I think it's a great card also in the 5-color deck, don't sleep on that. But in Izzet deck, it's also great. Deal 5 damage, kills most things, and then getting extra value in the form of a 3/3, it's great. And, preferably you want some artifact that has an ETB, because as a 3/3 creature with flying, now it's, of course, targetable by removal, which means that you not always will get something that requires sacrificing, because you won't have mana to do it on the turn it enters, and also because it won't be able to use that ability because it's a creature. So make sure that you make it count. And there are also some random artifact creatures that you might want to reanimate. So a lot of utility in that, and I think it fits in multiple homes despite looking like an Izzet artifact card. Lessons from life, and turns out that playing Magic is the lesson of life. 4 mana for a draw 3 cards in Simic. You may put a land card from your hand to the battlefield tapped. 60.4. It's a good version of card advantage and ramping for the deck that wants to have a lot of cards and ramp, which will be Simic plus multiple splashes, or preferably 5-color. So yeah. And it's true. I mean, I'm using Magic strategy in my lectures quite a lot, because it turns out that if you know how to play Magic and you apply that same understanding into literally anything, you're going to be quite well off if you can actually make the connections between what are the important things in Magic. Only then you can make a useful ideas from there. Like, for example, make sure that you're playing the same game that you should be playing and not the different game, and then complain that you're not winning. Very often a complaint with Magic players, and very often complaint of people in life, when they think that the world operates how they think it should be operating, when in fact it's operating very much not like they think that they should be operating. Or when you think that you're the beatdown and you very much not are the beatdown. Okay, then we have Baxter Stockman, 3 blue-red for a legendary creature human scientist. It's a 3/3 and it makes a 1/1 robot and ATB. And at the beginning of combat on your face, target artifact creature you control gets +3/+0 and first strike and vigilance until end of turn. So preferably you cast it on turn 5 when you already have an artifact creature without summoning sickness, and then it sort of like attacks them for 4 with first strike and still leaves up a blocker. Great. And then from the turn, next turn, you're going to have the 1/1 that can attack. And of course, if you cast like turn 3 nobody and you have a 3/2, attacking with the 6/2 first striker, that's big game. So Baxter Stockman will present an opponent with very annoying blocks to be made. And these are the 4 that are like over 60%. Then we have the second tier of the things that are between like 58-57% win rate. And first of them is Karai's technique. 1 white black for a sorcery. Choose one or both. Give a creature +3/+3 until end of turn, or give a creature -3/-3 until end of turn. Problem with this card is, of course, that if you give something +3/+3 before combat, well, it probably will be blocked one way or another. You still get to kill something, but maybe you don't get the full value of the pump. Because I assume that you are the beatdown when you're playing black-white, and opponent is going to be playing defensively, which means blockers are left to block. However, you can sneak that card, and when you sneak things, timing do not apply. You can sneak it at instant speed in this particular small spot where you can sneak things, which is after declaring blockers. And after blockers, that card becomes so much more powerful. Yes, you will have to bounce your beavers back to your hand. Oh no, you're gonna drain and scry a bit. But if opponent made blocks, you can either blow them up on blocks or pump another unblocked creature to compensate for the damage that you lost by returning something to your hand. And you can kill something that is maybe bigger than 3 power toughness, because they blocked with a 5/5 on your 3/3. Well, just turn that 5/5 into a 2/2 and all of a sudden problem solved. So yeah, great card. Not amazing like the other ones, but 58% win rate. And then Genghis Frog at 57% win rate. Green-blue for a 1/3 trampler. And when Genghis Frog or another mutant you control enters, create a mutagen token. And there's like tons of mutants in this set. Precisely, there are 61 mutants out of 117 creatures in total. So half of the creatures are mutants. And also there's some tokens that are mutants. For example, the red mutants that are made by multiple white cards. So I don't know how that's going to work with Genghis, but it's mainly white and red cards that make mutants. But potentially there is an option, because I think that card is actively best in 5-color deck, because for sure it's not doing particularly well in the Simic one. Still, it's like a pretty solid thing. A 1/3 that will generate a lot of those mutagen tokens. Also a 1/3 that you can very quickly upgrade to a 2/4, which will stop aggression quite efficiently for most creatures. Then we have Pizza Face Gastromancer at 57. It's a 2/4, enters, make a food. And at the beginning of your end step, if a permanent left the battlefield under your control this turn, put 3 counters on up to 1 target artifact or creature. If it isn't a creature, it becomes a creature. So it becomes a 3/3 basically. And has a weird ability of 10 tap, sacrifice Pizza Face, you gain 15 life. I don't know, is there some joke that this guy is like 5 foods or whatever from lore perspective? I don't know. But if it's the right board state, this can't really be the reason for the whole game. It becomes all about Pizza Face at some stage. And every uncommon that has that ability, that's fine for me. Sometimes it just will be irrelevant, and then that's a problem. But like it's tutorable with the Courier of Comestibles. There's so many like good things about it that you still probably should be always playing it. And I think that it's also pretty good in the 5-color deck. Karai, Future of the Foot. 1 black white for a 3/3. When it deals combat damage to a player, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. If her sneak cost was paid this turn, instead return that card to the battlefield. And this is like, yeah, of course it's going to be great in some versions of white-black, but I think it's also like a good card in the 5-color deck where you will often have like weird attacks with your Death Touchers, and maybe they don't want to be blocking, and you can reanimate some kind of like a combo reanimate some land cycler or something. potentially at least. And it says 57% win rate. And then we have 2 signposts that are below that threshold when I consider them good. And it's both of them are Boros, and they're both at around 54% win rate. And it's Go Ninja Go, red-white for a sorcery, choose one or both, exile target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control, and a bite spell. So, yeah, that's just not doing enough, I think, compared to the other of those do 2 things kind of spells. Like, Karai's Technique is a stronger ability, and definitely Brilliance Unleashed is a much stronger ability than that. Now, obviously, it costs only 2 mana, but the problem with the white-red is that the creatures are not that big most of the time, so that the bite spell is not particularly useful. And then the blink is also not something that you want to be doing pre-combat, because you're going to maybe not be able to attack with the creature that you're blinking. So yeah, it's hard to find like a great spot with it, and that's probably why the win rate suffers. The neutrinos, that looked a bit better to me, but probably this one on the other hand is suffering from the fact that it's a 4 mana 2/4 dumb beast. It doesn't do anything on enter. It does do something when you untap with it, but a lot of things do something when you untap with them, and the difficult part is untapping with them. And I guess that's part why the neutrinos are suffering a bit. There are better 4-drops in the set. Mutanimals, I'm looking at you. So that covers the color sort of power ranking of cards and some context to those cards, and maybe through that context you get some idea of the game plans of what's going on. But we only have 5 color pairs in the set, so why not we just look at the best cards of those 5 color pairs. Okay, so as we looked before, we have 5 color pairs, and I sorted them now slightly differently than on the previous graph. I sorted them from the highest win rate in pick 1 draft to the lowest win rate in pick 1 draft. And we're going to look at them in the same way for every color combination. We're going to look at the best common for the color combination, hidden gem that I selected on some kind of very arbitrary criteria, and a trap, which is also an arbitrary criteria. But I will try to explain to you why I've selected those cards and what is the rationale behind them. Top common for Orzhov is April O'Neil Kunoichi Trainee, which surprised me, I have to say. I was expecting the Squirrelnoids to be the best, but it's not. Gives you the sort of impression why April O'Neil is such a good card in this format. Even though it's a 2-drop, and sneaking it, sneaking a 2-drop is a bit worse than sneaking a 1-drop, it still is a top common, because it will reliably connect, and the Scry 2 is such a good ability in this deck. Yeah, Scry 2 is doing a lot of lifting here with this card. As I said, because this Scry 2 is worth some mana. Not a full mana, but some fraction of a mana that is probably around a half. And because of that, it's a 2-drop that costs you 1.5 mana, sort of, which is great. Then Hidden Gem I selected is Jenica, Bad Apple Big Sister. It has a high win rate, 58.3, and it goes pretty late. And it's maybe slightly underplayed also compared to what it does. We talked about this card. It's a 3/3 that brings a 2/2 and has a plain cycling. So this is one more message for me to you that this card is good. And it's funny because we have this sort of like vertical cycle here. Jenica at common, Mighty Mutanimals at uncommon, Sally Pride at rare, and then the Dinosaur Lord, Chief, Commander at mythic. All of them being white creatures that will make multiple bodies and are pretty good for what they do, including best mythic, best rare, best uncommon, and a solid common in Jenica to complete that vertical cycle. The trap I selected is Pain 101, and I selected it because it sort of looks like an Orzhov card, where you attack with something and you force blocks a lot because people don't want you to sneak in your fantastic things. But And you would think that, okay, pain 1/1 will give that creature death touch, and when it dies, it returns to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. You think, okay, I'm attacking with my 2/2. If they block it, I give it death touch, and it comes back. But it just doesn't seem to be working, and I think it may be something to do with the fact that pain 1/1 just costs 2 mana, and maybe that's too much for what you're trying to achieve, because you will be casting it on your only small creatures mainly. So I don't know, it just doesn't align very well. Maybe you can have decks where it will be working fine, but what I noticed in this specific card is that it ends up in very good decks otherwise, and this is an outlying bad card in those decks. So maybe there is decks where pain 1/1 is good, but right now it's put in actually good ninja decks, and it's a card that makes them weaker. So yeah. Well, but if they use removal, you get blown out, is not a very likely scenario, because as I said, there is a shortage of instant speed removals that can do it. But yeah, maybe that's part of the charm of the card, that it can be blown out by removal and you have to cast it proactively. Oh, Rosemary Tea, hello, and welcome. Use it to trample. Well, that maybe is a better use, and maybe it literally is a Golgari card more than an Orzhov card. But in Orzhov, at least from the data that I can see, it is mainly a trap. Okay. In terms of uncommons, we have the same kind of things. Best uncommon here, clearly Dream Beavers at 67.5. 67.5. It is exactly on par with Mighty Mutanimals. But I put Dream Beavers here because it is by a fraction better, and also because I think it's maybe more important to show you that Dream Beavers is as powerful as Mighty Mutanimals, which should give you some thinking about how good this card is, and maybe it will update your pick orders and you will start picking it as it should be, a bomb level card. 67.5 is insane. Hidden gem I selected is Turtle Blimp because it has a very high win rate of 60.5. And it's played very little, so maybe there's a specific build of it, but I wanted to flag that Blimp is a very, very good card. And for the first time in the history of this segment of my podcast, I did not find a trap. I looked at it, and it's like, I can't realistically be showing you a card that has... let me just give you the numbers that are correct. The lowest win rate uncommon in white-black is Paramecia Coloniax with 54%, but it's played very little. So people have correctly avoided playing that card, which means it's not really a trap because no one is playing it. Second worst win rate uncommon is Karai, Future of the Foot, at 57.7. And I don't feel comfortable telling you that something that has a 57.7% game in hand win rate is a trap. It's not a trap. It's just an above average card. So literally every white and white-black uncommon in this set is pretty solid. And also Turtle Blimp for some reason. So, yeah. Just pick uncommons and you're going to be fine with your Orzhov deck. Supplement them with April and Jenicas and don't put Pain 101 and you're Gucci. Like Mangucci. Okay, Izzet. This is the artifact deck, so it wouldn't surprise you that Mauser Foundry is good. I picked it as a best common at 60.6. This is the one, 2 mana, make a 1/1. You can sacrifice it to deal 3 damage. When it leaves, it also makes a 1/1. It is not, however, the highest win rate card in this deck. The highest win rate common in this deck is Omni Cheese Pizza. 2 mana for an artifact food. When it enters, you draw a card. You can sacrifice it for 1 mana to add 1 mana of any color, so filter. And you can sacrifice it for 2 mana to gain 3 life like normal food would do. I put it as a hidden gem though, despite it having the highest win rate, because that card is very underplayed in the deck. And it turns out that it actually is not bad. So I don't know if there is like maybe a more controlling version of it. Maybe it's great because you can easily sacrifice it to get it back with your Brilliance 6 mana, deal 5 and return something to the battlefield spell. So many questions, so few answers. However, it has a really, really solid win rate, so you should start maybe playing it. Start playing it in your deck. Mauser Foundry is a very slow flame tongue. Yeah, maybe. But there is also, like, you know, the things that we talked about. Nobody returning it to your hand and making a 1/1 is as well a good thing. And there are some other ways of sacrificing an artifact that doesn't require you to crack it for 5. Trap I selected is Purple Dragon Punks, the 2-mana 2/2 that taps for a red that you can spend only to cast an artifact, spell, or to activate an ability. Notably, not only an artifact ability, if you can have an ability of a non-artifact that you can activate, you can also activate it with Purple Dragon Punks. Still, probably you shouldn't be doing it at 53.5% win rate. It's not that great. And it does sort of, the text box suggests you that you should be playing it in the artifact deck. And because of this dissonance between the text box of the card and the win rate, I put it as a trap. In terms of uncommons, we have Casey Jones, Jury Rig Justiciar at 62%. This is the 2-mana 2/1 with haste that when it enters, you look at the top 4 cards and you can find an artifact from there and put it in your hand. Solid win rate, great card. You definitely want to have like 9 artifacts to maximize its value, preferably even more. But nothing to complain here. It's super easy to trade in combat, so you don't care about having multiple copies in your deck either. The hidden gem I selected is Ooze Spill. Yes, it is by, 0.2% from Brilliance Unleashed and by like 1.2 percentage points from Baxter Stockman. And also there is a Metalhead somewhere there in the mix. Ooze Spill is actually the 5th most powerful uncommon in Izzet at 60.4, which tells me that the top end of the uncommons in this color combination is really powerful. So Ooze Spill at 60.4 is the least played of them and goes the latest. And this is my continuous crusade of convincing you that this is a good card, and it also has artifact synergies in it because it makes a mutagen. So play it. It's really strong. It's really good. The trap I selected is Fugitive Droid. Blue for a 1/1. It can't be blocked if an artifact entered the battlefield under your control this turn. And it has an ability, blue, sacrifice this creature, counter target spell that targets an artifact or a creature you control. And I think that this is a card that looks like it's an artifact synergy, but its impact is just not big enough. 54.6 is not like a horrendous win rate, but it clearly is not the same as the 60% of Ooze Spill, or even 59.7 of a Turtle Blimp, which is also good in this archetype. So, it's definitely not the same kind of level. I think that this card is a constructed plant, actually. That 1 mana, sacrifice it to counter a spell. This is much more valuable in constructed, especially when you have some kind of artifacts that are worth protecting in an artifact deck that I'm pretty sure is going to be born from this set in combination with some other cards from the previous set. We have so many now in standard that I think that there is a potential for some kind of an artifact deck in standard. It might be like a tier 2 or something. We're going to see who's going to cook something up on that. So constructed card more than a limited card. I think that the 1/1 just doesn't connect for enough, even if it's unblockable. Maybe in some decks when you have the cranial plating version from the set, maybe then it's actually good. But then any creature is. Okay, so that covers Izzet. In terms of Boros, the best common is the hybrid common, the Mechanized Ninja Cavalry, 58.6% game in hand win rate. But this deck already is running out of good cards relatively quickly, and also does not have many good commons, because as you can see, I selected Jenica Bed Apple Big Sister as the hidden gem at only 55.3. So there is the Mechanized Ninja Cavalry that is at 58.6. Second best common, the Uneasy Alliance, is 56.7. So 2 percentage points difference already. So the problem is that with Boros is that it's pretty shallow. And I think that this makes me think that you want to go into that kind of draft only based on bombs and maybe Mighty Mutanimals, which is a bomb, basically. The trap I found was Grounded for Life, 53.2, is not like a disqualifying win rate, but given how high you have to pick this card, this is not really something you want to be doing at that stage. Grounded for Life has an ALSA of 5.1, which means that you have to pick it relatively quickly in the deck in the draft. Just after rares and uncommons are gone, and this is like not really optimal. EPF Point Squad has 5.8 ALSA, which means it goes much later and has 56% win rate. I think that it has something to do with how aggressive Boros wants to be, and therefore how unlikely it is to be discounted. This kind of card is always better if you're playing a slow deck and you want to defend yourself from attacks by 2-drops or something. In this deck, you want to be casting 2-drops and not keeping up mana for Grounded for Life. And 5 mana for an unconditional removal that doesn't even exile is not like amazing. So I think that this is the problem with this card in this particular deck. And again, I'm sure that there's going to be some kind of a big Boros deck where you play slower game, you have a lot of removal and some value, and maybe some artifact synergies, maybe even Jeskai as someone in the chat suggested earlier. And then Grounded for Life is going to be good. But the canonical version of Boros that is an aggro deck that curves out is not that much interested in Grounded for Life. It's interested in removal because the Alliance is the second most winning common, but Grounded for Life is just not it for that particular deck. Would you believe it that Mighty Mutanimals is the best uncommon? I'm pretty sure you're shocked as I am. 66.8% is, again, sickening. And yeah, pick that card, first pick. There's not many cards in the set that are better than that. In fact, there are 2. And you will know when you see them because one of them is a Mythic Wrath and the other one is Sally Pride, the best card in the set by like a mile. So let's focus on the hidden gem, which is Koya, Death from Above. I picked it as a hidden gem. I mean, it's a good card, you know that, but it might mistake you that you see this 3 and a black extra ability to make sure that the exiled card is exiled permanently, and may sort of bamboozle you into thinking that, oh, this is an Orzhov card and I'm not just playing it in my Orzhov decks. Well, it turns out just being able to cast it for 3 mana and doing a bit of Flicker Wisp action is good enough. And also, like, even if you're playing Boros, could be relatively okay to give yourself at least a chance of activating it by putting one of the white-black dual lands, and once in a million times you will be able to exile something. But it's still good here at 58.4, making it one of the top third best actually uncommon in the color combination. But there is like a reasonably large selection of the uncommons that can fit in there. So Mighty Mutanimals, of course, are like above and beyond everything else. There's like 8 percentage points between this and the second best uncommon, which is Lita, the 2-1 that can grow. Then there's Koya. Then there's the Last Ronin's Technique, the one that makes 3/1/1s, which is also at 58.3, because 3 alliance triggers in combat is just formidable. Dimensional Exile is there, 58.2. Leonardo at 57.8. So these are like the top uncommons for this particular archetype in the set. The trap I selected, 55, is not horrendous, but it's a Signpost uncommon. Go Ninja Go. It's just to warn you that this is not the reason to draft white-red. It's a filler card at best. The reason for drafting this deck is Mighty Mutanimals, and not that. How much did the... there is still no data for the turtle blimp. I can check one thing. Turtle blimp. 55% games played win rate. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be probably fine, but like not amazing. There is a win rate for it generically, but not specifically for Boros deck. These are all win rates specifically for Boros decks. Yeah. I'm glad that we're on the same page here. Yeah, and there was, for example, there was definitely a win rate for it in Boros, which was very high. So I'm assuming it's going to be fine in Boros as well. It's just like we have to wait a couple of days probably. Okay, Golgari. Best common in Golgari is Frog Butler, 58.8. It's quite obvious why this card is good. And Pachyderm is the hidden gem. It's still low on the draft. It does have its taxonomical problems, as I mentioned. But it's very close with the Frog Butler in terms of the win rate. And this is maybe something that people have to update themselves. So, yeah. The trap I selected is Michelangelo Game Master, because this card sort of screams Golgari. It has the disappear mechanic. It's a 3-drop that is reasonable and can grow. So it looks like it's a fine card. It just is disappointing in terms of its numbers. Who knows, maybe because people play too many copies of it. Maybe this is sort of like you don't want more than one copy in your deck situation. But yeah, 53.7 is not like inspiring. And that was my main kind of like complaint about this card. They like you cast it on turn 3 and until turn 6 you don't have an opportunity to properly make it bigger or something. So yeah. In terms of best uncommon, Tainted Treats is winning. I do like when the Signpost is topping the best uncommon for a color combination. 60.7. The removal that can make a food token basically for targeting anything and can kill artifacts. But Courier of Comestibles is just a fraction behind at 60.5. And then, yeah, we talked about Courier of Comestibles, but it just has a good package of things that it can do. And its ALSA is still... wait a second, where is it? Its ALSA is still quite high at 4.23, which is not like super, goes super late, but it still goes late enough for me to notice that this card can be still gotten quite late for what it provides you with. And the trap I selected is Shredder's Technique, and that's mainly on the back of it that 55% win rate is not amazing. And ALSA of 2.9 is really low, which means it is picked very highly. So you need to pick really early your Shredder's Techniques without getting the benefit of having like an amazing card. I would definitely pick Courier of Comestibles over it. I would definitely pick Tainted Treats over it. And then we have the last color combination, which is Simic. And the best common, and here we see like a big drop off. This color combination is winning much less, so you can expect that the cards in it are going to be slightly lower in power level. And also Simic is always in the recent sets designed as a home for a 5-color deck. We have a very good 5-color deck in this set. We just don't know why it's so good from the data. You can figure it out by playing, and I have a very good idea, but because I'm focusing on data here, I'm not going to speculate. I'll leave it to others. But definitely the best common in Simic is Return to the Sewers at 58.6. This card is just exactly what you want to be doing, an interaction in the color combination that is routinely low on interaction, and making a mutagen token, which is very welcome in mutagen token friendly shell. Hidden gem I selected is Sewer Valence Cam. It still goes relatively late. It's still not played as often as it possibly should be. This card is so good in this deck because what this deck has a problem with is surviving the early game. Once you get to the later game, you are fine. You have your big things, you accrue your value, you have card advantage. And this not only gets you through the turns. I had this like beautiful game a couple of days ago. I was playing a 5-color version based on Simic. But I did have a surveillance cam, and my opponent was killing me with the stupid 2/4 vigilant flyer with Alliance and casting millions of creatures and putting counters on it and whatever. And I would have been dead if not for the fact that I was able to. They go to attacks after putting like multiple Alliance triggers before combat, so they were tapped out, and I can plan my interaction correctly through that. I just cast the 1-mana Surveillance Cam, and they couldn't attack me anymore because on the ground I was covered with some Death Touchers, but in the air it was a problem. And then I did the same thing next turn. That gained me something like 13 life, maybe 12 life, and drew me 2 cards. And in the cards I drew was Anchovy and Banana Pizza. I killed the flyer and the game was stabilized. It did in the end take me, because I was at 3 life and my opponent was at 34, and it took me a bit to kill my opponent in the end. But they never attacked profitably again. And I ended up the game at 14 life, and yes, okay, with 0 cards in the library, but they were at -13, so happy times. But only because of Surveillance Cam I was able to craft this kind of thing, because it bought me time, that I had my mana, I had my all 5 colors, I built my board through that, and they just ran out of steam at that stage because they are only, Boros deck that draws 1 card a turn. So make sure that you look at the Surveillance Cam and think of it as more like a tempo removal that lets you stabilize your board and buys you time so that you can actually start taking over the game. The trap I selected is the Crustacean Commando. This looks like exactly the card that you want to be playing. It's like an 0/3 that makes a mutagen. It will clog the board early so you can survive till the late game. But it just doesn't work, because you never have time to put the counter early. And if you do, then you don't do something else that maybe is more impactful. So it becomes an 0/3. And the problem is with 0/3s is that they don't disencourage attacks. If it was like a 1/3/4, well, but yeah, it could have been a 1. It could have been a 1/3. It would be good as a 1/3, and then you upgrade it for 1 extra mana to a 2/4. But it's not like end of all be all if you spend 3 mana on the 2/4, even if it's like divided by something. But as it is an 0/3, it just does not disencourage attacks enough. In terms of the uncommons, I picked, well, I didn't pick anything. Saved by the Shell is the best win rate uncommon in this color combination. It is sort of a hidden gem as well, because people don't play it often enough. It's very important, because from what I noticed is that those green decks very often are 1 removal spell away from dying a horrendous death. And Saved by the Shell allows you to not die to that particular 1 removal because you protect your creature. In fact, you make it stronger through that. So this is a good way of maybe playing slightly off curve, but in such a way, with Butler Frog or something, you can play off curve in a way that is maybe more inconspicuous. And protecting your creature, making it bigger, is just so important. It will be this pivotal moment that lets you turn the game from you being in the defensive to you being stable. And this is what you are looking for in those decks. Yet again, I will have to appeal to you. Start playing Oozspill. That card is really, really good. And people are still not playing it often enough. And then the trap I selected is Genghis Frog, specifically in Simic decks. I think that card has pretty good win rate in 5-color decks, but in Simic decks it only showed me 55% game in hand win rate. I'm gonna double check it because I like double checking things. But yeah, it's there, 55.7, which isn't, it's not horrendous. You want to be playing it. But again, this is just showing you that this is not the reason to draft blue-black. This is maybe a reward of finding an open blue-black lane. And there is a big difference picking some card thinking that, oh, this is going to be the card for my deck. To give you the impression, cards that have better win rate than Genghis Frog are Mona Lisa, Courier of Comestibles, which, by the way, is not as good in Simic as it is in Golgari, so definitely not right. Lessons from Life, Ray Fillet Man Ray, Michelangelo Mutant BFF, Metalhead, Novel Nunchaku, Ooze Spill, and Saved by the Shell. All those cards have a higher win rate in common than Genghis Frog. And it's sort of similar win rate as Bespoke Bow. So, do I think that this implies people may be playing Simic incorrectly? I don't even know. I mean, I don't think of a Simic as a deck in general. And maybe, I mean, from the picture that I see from the Simic is that you want to be playing some sort of mid-range card advantage deck. And maybe that Genghis Frog is putting people too much on the, oh, I want to be the beatdown kind of plan. And I want to put my mutagen tokens onto something instead of like building up a board and clogging it and then taking over with card advantage. So maybe there is this kind of like international conflict between making a lot of mutagens early and maybe even creating a large creature and then hoping that you can attack with it versus I shouldn't be attacking at all. I should be building my board and gaining value and whatever, playing a mid-range game rather than tempo aggressive. I don't know. I would have to look at other things in this deck. Well, it would be great for me to get the data from the 5-color deck, but unfortunately it's still impossible because I think that comparing the Simic numbers to the 5-color deck numbers, that would be very telling in what we want to be achieving. But of course, because the 5-color decks are split into multiple ones and 17Lands doesn't allow you to look at clustering of multiple color combinations to check a win rate of a card, unfortunately, I can't really tell that. I would have to calculate all those things all by myself from the public datasets. And because public datasets are not available yet, I also don't have access to them because I play an even a level playing field with other content creators who are not working with 17Lands. And I don't get the access to the data just because I am mates with someone. But okay, hopefully it was helpful for you and you learned something about the format. And at least, again, my episodes are not there to tell you what to do exactly, but maybe to give you an opportunity to expand certain ideas and horizons within the format by pointing to what the data can tell us about it. So it's a lot of that is going to be left to you to really churn the numbers and think about your own strategies. Because if people have good strategies, they will provide me with interesting data for the next episode, which will be on the right cards in the right deck. And hopefully by then we will going to have at least some idea of the multicolor decks. My plan for this format is that I'm going to make next week an episode about the right cards in the right decks, where we're going to look at which cards perform specifically good in particular color combinations. And then I think third episode and the last episode for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles themselves is going to be about the 5-color decks, because hopefully by then we're going to get the full data and I can do a proper analysis of those. And then I'm really, really looking forward to making some episodes that look at generic data from multiple formats, and because I never have times in the short set cycle to make those like exploratory episodes when I try to figure out a metric or something like that. So I'm hoping to make a couple of those. But yeah, that's a topic for the next couple of weeks. This one is done. So thanks to the 17Lands team and thanks to Uncle Cardboard / Jake Brown for being people who helped me with starting up this podcast. And I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.